High energy. I was raised by a single mother. I've never attempted to locate my biological father because my mother was all I ever needed. She made it look easy. Growing up, my friends' mothers would often nudge me and joke that we could all use a little more Carolyn in our lives. I never understood the joke. One weekend, I decided to take my 5-year-old daughter Ellen down to visit my mother. I asked my wife if she wanted to tag along, but she passed. Looking back, I don't think my wife ever liked my mother. It seemed so strange to me. How could anyone not like her? My wife was no different than all the envious mothers I grew up around, I thought. It seemed a bit pathetic to me. On the way to my mother's house, I couldn't help but notice how quiet Ellen was being. She was all slouched in the back seat, blowing up loose strings of hair from her face. I didn't get it. What kid didn't love a visit to their grandmother's house? I put in her favorite sing-along cassette to see if it would get her going, but it didn't work. "Sweetheart, what's the matter? When I was your age, there wasn't anything in the world I loved more than a trip to my grandmother's house. Aren't you excited to see Grammy Carolyn?" I asked. "I guess," she murmured. "Well, I know she's absolutely thrilled to see you," I said, reaching back to pat her on the knee. "She was so excited when I told her you were coming to see her with me. Come on, honey, why aren't you happy to see Grandma?" Well, she said, pausing to consider her words. "I don't know. Grandma's weird." "She's what? Weird? What on earth is so weird about that woman? She doesn't do anything differently than anyone else. You've been listening to your mother a little bit too much," I said. "I don't know. Forget I said anything," she said, slouching further into her seat. It was nighttime by the time we arrived. Ellen was out cold in the back seat. I got her out of the car and carried her up to the front door. Before I could even press the doorbell, my mother had already answered the door for us. That unmistakable smell of her legendary pot roast hit me like a ton of bricks. She cooed when she saw Ellen asleep in my arms. "Oh, would you look at that? Fast asleep. She's the most beautiful little girl I've ever seen," my mother said. "You know who she gets it from," I said, giving her a kiss on the cheek. "Seriously, this little squirt is a dead ringer for her grandmother." It was true. They both had auburn-colored hair with light green eyes. Now, she said, beckoning us inside. "None of that sweet talk. Let's get you something to eat." Ellen didn't seem like she was waking up anytime soon, so I made a spot for her on the living room sofa and joined my mother at the kitchen table. Everything about my mother's house was exactly as I remembered it as a child, from the ornate wainscoting down to the immaculately white kitchen tiles. An entire team of French maids probably couldn't keep a house as clean as my 71-year-old mother could. As I took my first bite of her legendary pot roast, I couldn't help but feel a bit of sadness for her. For an attractive woman with her housekeeping skills, she'd never had a lot of luck with men. Not having a father figure didn't bother me as a child. With my mother, I never needed one. But it was perplexing that so few men ever came around. Taking on all those roles must have made it difficult. Her high energy was like a curse. "I honestly don't understand how you maintain such an incredible household at your age," I said, shoveling in a mouthful of pot roast. "Come on now," my mother said with a blush. "Keeping a house is easy. Not seeing you or Ellen for such a long time is the hard part." "Well, in that case, we'll need to make the trip more often," I said. "Anyway, Mom?" "Ooh, there she is," my mother interrupted, rising from her chair. Ellen stood in the kitchen door frame, rubbing her eyes. My mother hurried over to her and kissed her on both cheeks. Ellen ignored her. "Daddy, can you be the pajama fairy tonight?" I groaned. "Yes, sugar, I'll be the pajama fairy tonight." "Oh, what is that?" my mother asked. The pajama fairy was something my wife concocted to get Ellen to put on her pajamas at night. It involved a lot of twirling around, waving an invisible wand, and pretending to be a fairy princess. Once she was adequately satisfied with the job you were doing, she'd put on part of her pajamas. Then you had to repeat this process. If that sounds stupid, that's because it was, but it was the only way to get Ellen into her damned PJs. My mother's eyes lit up as I explained this to her. "Oh, that sounds wonderful, Ellen. Could I be the pajama fairy tonight?" my mother pleaded. That would be great, Mom. Ellen, would it be okay if Grammy Carolyn got to be Pajama Fairy tonight? I asked. Ellen moaned. Oh, all right. As they sauntered off, I got up for a second helping of the roast. Once Ellen was in bed, I figured I'd give my wife a call. At that moment, I couldn't help but feel grateful for where I was. When you return home for the first time in a long time, you tend to forget about aging, responsibilities, shit like that. Tonight I'd get to sleep in a room that was the exact same as it was when I left for college 20 years ago. Once I was done with my second helping, I got up to check on my mother's progress. How's the Pajama Fairy doing? I asked, slowly turning the guest bedroom door handle. Is she... I couldn't believe it. Ellen was in her PJs, sound asleep. Not only that, but her Dora the Explorer duffel bag was sitting on top of the chest of drawers. It usually took us 20 minutes to get Ellen in her pajamas, and not only did my mother get there in a quarter of the time, she actually had time to retrieve our luggage from the car. I was awed. The digital alarm on the nightstand flashed 10 o'clock, which probably meant my mom was getting ready for bed as well. With everybody getting settled in, it seemed like I'd probably hit the hay pretty soon. I went outside to call my wife. Honey, you're not going to believe what Mom did this time, I said. I bet I can, my wife said in an exasperated tone. No, Carrie, she really did it this time. Ellen is in bed right now, sleeping like a rock, and it only took Mom like 5 minutes to get her there. Why am I not surprised? My wife said. I could sense she was growing agitated with me, though I wasn't entirely sure why. Carrie, what exactly is it about my mother that you don't like? You could have been down here with the three of us having a great weekend. All you're doing now is giving me a shitty tone. What gives? I said, just about ready to hang up on her. My wife sighed. Tim, sweetheart, you've never noticed any oddities when it comes to your mother? And that high energy of hers? You know, like how it seems a little unlikely that someone is capable of doing all the things she does? What do you mean? I asked uncomfortably. Honey, have you ever seen what your mother does as she's just about to go to bed? She asked bluntly. No, of course not. Why would I want to do that? Honey, listen to me carefully. I want you to check in on your mother, okay? Go inside, knock on her bedroom door, and see for yourself. Afterwards, I want you to call me so we can talk about it, okay? Do that for me. Carrie, what do you... My wife hung up the phone. I went back inside the house. At the end of the hall, I could see the light to my mother's bedroom was still on. Not sure what I'd find inside, I slowly approached her door and tapped 3 times. I didn't get an answer. I knocked a few more times, but still didn't get an answer. I held my breath and slowly turned the bronze doorknob. When I found what was inside, I practically choked on the very air I was breathing. My entire body went cold. Mom? I asked, trembling. And all 5 of them looked up at once.